Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, tax optimization and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. Robert Souza, welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. So today we're going to dive into all things wealth, but specifically reimagining wealth and what you have seen that look like in the financial industry. But before we dive in, I'd love to hear a little bit more about yourself, your story, where you started, and how you got to where you are today.
Thanks, Nicole, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I think my story is going to resonate with listeners because, I didn't always know where I was going. And I think that's part of living an authentic life is telling the raw truth, is letting people realize that it's not always a linear progression to get where you're going. So for me, when I was growing up, I was very analytical. So I was good with math and science, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So in school, for my undergraduate degree, I studied biopsychology. Thought I might want to be a surgeon or go into the medical field, but it didn't really call to me. And I was fortunate through my family to have some exposure to investing. And I always thought it was so interesting that your money could earn money. And so it really wasn't until kind of the end of my college career that I decided, gosh, I don't want to go down the medical path. I'd prefer to go into the financial route. Problem was, I didn't really have any experience. So, I pursued my degree, got my degree in biopsychology, went and lived at home. And, through networking, I was able to take an unpaid internship in the financial industry just to get some exposure. And I worked at this company for about 6 months. And, unfortunately, they weren't able to hire me in a paid position. So at that point, I had enough experience to be able to parlay that into a paid job. So I worked for a big firm called Western Asset, which manages bonds, fixed income for large institutions. And I started on the ground level. I was stuffing envelopes back when paper was a thing. Now it's not anymore. So I did that, and I did a lot of client service work, and I used that time to get my chartered financial analyst designation, which is the gold standard in the investment industry for investment analysis. Stayed at Western Asset for a couple years, worked my way up, and as luck would have it, the firm that I worked at, which was a registered investment advisor in Pasadena, that had me as an unpaid intern, was growing and needed somebody to come on board. So I came back, and I came back in an investment related role. So I worked as an investment analyst for a while there. And, I was pretty good at what I did, picked some great investments for clients. And I think, the firm noticed that. So, I graduated from being an analyst to managing people's money. So being a portfolio manager. And eventually I became chief investment officer for this firm. And, it was a great journey and taught me a lot because, I always viewed money as the end game, the thing you wanted to get to. So I thought, gosh, if I made more money or if I had more money, my life would change. And I think as I achieved things in my life, I realized I still felt the same. There was something missing. And for me, there was this lack of attention to other areas of my life, to, my health, to, my relationships. And so although I was on this great career progression, I wasn't necessarily happy. And even professionally, what I saw with clients was that, they might have a couple $1,000,000 and maybe we picked some good investments and they made an extra $1,000,000. But if their mindset was limited and they didn't use it in a fulfilling way, nothing really changed. The guy with $3 million that didn't travel if he had $4 million. And so I started to realize it wasn't about picking the right stock. It was about helping people change their mindset so they can live more authentically.
Ooh, okay. Let's dive into this and really what you call reimagining wealth, which I love. And as you were speaking, it reminds me to a degree of why I left. I'm from Canada, so why I left Canada, and that was almost a decade ago now. And what I like to the word I like to bundle it into is called lifestyle design. And it has less to do about
Yeah.
finances, although geo arbitrage and earning a strong dollar and living elsewhere was definitely something that played a role in the move, but really designing a lifestyle based on what you want out of life and not just going through the motions that I think is well, not I think, it is so easy to go through, but I think in the last few years, and I'm sure you could probably speak on this as well, a lot of people have started to really question, is that what I want? And I did
Yep.
that a few years before, and it was like, oh my gosh, you're moving halfway around the world. Like, this is so crazy. But it's become a little bit more of the norm now, which I absolutely love, and really reimagining what is lifestyle design for the individual.
I love that, and I completely agree with that. We're all unique individuals. And, the traditional view of wealth has always been correlated about with, how much money you have, and the more the better. And that one size fits all model has a lot of limitations. And I think it's best, best used to give an example here. Let's use two people, and these are two hypothetical people, Joe and John. So Joe has $10 million, but Joe works 90 to 100 hours a week. He's always stressed out. He doesn't have time for any hobbies. He doesn't have close relationships with his friends or family. His health isn't very good because he doesn't have time to eat well and exercise. Is Joe wealthy? And then John, on the other hand, earns a modest $60,000 to $70,000 a year, but he lives within his means. He loves nature. He has a lot of hobbies. He has great relationships with family and friends, real great connection to the community, takes real good care of his health. Is John not wealthy? And so when it comes to wealth, it's not so much about what you have, it's how you feel about what you have. And you're wealthy if you feel abundant, even if you don't have tons of money in your bank account. Because I think a lot of us view wealth as a number or a destination, and wealth is a way of living. It's a feeling. It's that feeling of abundance, and it's that mindset of realizing that you can create your authentic life. And when you do that, you're wealthy.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great example. So, okay, it makes me think about I was listening to a podcast very recently, and I'm curious your opinion on this because I think everyone will have different opinions. So it's a podcast for very high achieving business owners. We're talking hundreds of millions to billion. So definitely not a
Yep.
bracket that everyone's in, but it is a very interesting podcast to listen to where he comes on with all of these founders who have built these amazing businesses and amassed this wealth for themselves and their families. And he was speaking to an owner who was really talking about he built this, I don't know, like billion-dollar company or something along those lines. And it took a decade plus. He said he lost his hair, he lost his first marriage, and there was something else that he lost within the process. And he was just really explaining the process. And so he was saying, there are certain periods in life of building this business where he needed to just grind and hustle hard, and sometimes that would be an entire year, and then there were other periods where he needed to relax, and that was not the period for working, and it really got me thinking, if you want to achieve that level of success, we're talking $1 billion, is there a way to do that
Yeah.
sustainably, or does it? Because 'cause I've heard this method before of really, like, grinding hard for set amount of time, getting what needs to be done, whether it's a few months or a year or a few years, and then relaxing and enjoying the fruits of your labor. But I don't know, like, I don't
Yeah.
have the right answer, but I was just like, that seems like having a billion is great or hundreds of millions, but is it worth it to give up your first marriage, your hair, and like, I don't know, maybe your relationship with your kids or something like that? And is there a way to do that sustainably? I don't know. I haven't built a business that big. Or does it look like you have to grind and that's the only way to do it?
So I think the first thing to think about here is what is enough to you? That's different for everyone. Somebody might be able to live on, $100,000 and make that more than enough. And somebody else might want $100 million. And there's nothing wrong with that. Meaning, the amount of money you want or need doesn't have to be one size fits all. And I think there's a great story I can tell here. So, Jack Bogle was the founder of Vanguard, which is a very well known investment company that most of us know. And he gave a speech, Georgetown commencement speech, and the title was Enough. And the speech was about two famous authors, Joseph Heller and Kurt Vonnegut. They were at a party from a famous hedge fund manager was giving. and, lavish party, great party, and they're talking amongst themselves. And Kurt Vonnegut turns to Joseph Heller and says, "You know what? This hedge fund manager made more in one day than you've made in your career." And this is a famous author, by the way. And Heller turns to him and says, "Yeah, I have something he'll never have." And Vonnegut goes, "What?" He goes, "Enough." And so I think that's something that, you need to take to heart. And it doesn't mean that there aren't moments in your life you don't index more on some specific area. I think it's impossible to have perfect balance in life. I think the goal is to have some balance, but you have to ask yourself, are the sacrifices worth it? And, if it is worth it for you and that's your authentic life and you're chasing your passion, then go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. I think life is all about connection and experience. It's about connecting with people, connecting with, hobbies, your passions, your career. If you can do that, you're going to create fulfillment. Because I think so many people of us don't understand the difference between pleasure and fulfillment. Pleasure is temporary. So you can go buy a new car and, for a month or two, that feels great. You feel on top of the world. Then a few months later, it's old news. You don't even think about it anymore. Fulfillment's something that lasts. And fulfillment comes with deep connection and experience with individuals, so that's loved ones and friends. And it comes from pursuing your passions because those things can last for years and decades, even a lifetime.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that about just enough. I think that we all kind of know that concept, but to just really rephrase it into one word being enough is very interesting because we never just ask ourselves, like, is it enough? There's always, and it's so hard in today's day and age with social media and everything that we're bombarded with. But there's also, and this is something we talk about a lot on the show too, there's also so much going on behind the scenes that you don't really see.
Exactly, exactly, and, society puts a lot of pressure on us to want more, 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 and we get in that more, and it just feels like that's what we should do, and the problem is we're not living intentionally. We're not thinking about what is it that we want from our life, because you have to have defined goals. Once you have defined goals and you know where you're going, you can figure out how to achieve that. You can take the small steps, and I think the reason a lot of us don't make a lot of progress is, we might want something, but it feels so daunting. It feels overwhelming. You wanna build a new business, but you just don't know where to start. And you have to start somewhere. You have to start with small actions. Because everyone you look up to and respect, whether it's a famous athlete, an actor, they all started somewhere, right? They were a no one at some point before they became a someone. We just don't see that progression that happened. One of my favorite athletes was Kobe Bryant. I thought just amazing mindset, which carries into all areas of life, by the way. And you saw his achievements. You saw the championships, all the points he scored, but you didn't see the hours in the gym, that by himself, taking shots, practicing all the fundamentals. And that's what got him to where he is. And it's the same for all of us.
Yeah, totally. I love that analogy. Okay, so I want to talk about building wealth and what that looks like in today's day
Yeah.
and age. So, share with us, I guess, if a listener is listening from the US, what are some interesting assets, ways to get started? What could that look like for somebody?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to build a spending plan. So I like to reframe it as a spending plan versus a budget. A budget feels limiting and constrictive. A spending plan makes you feel in control. But you have to have an awareness of what's going on. And so many of us, we have a random walk with our finances. We don't know how much we're really making, how much we're really spending. And so if you don't have that baseline, it's hard to create change. But once you have that baseline, the real goal is to start to create a spending plan. And what I do with my clients is I use what's called 50-30-20 budgeting. And this is just a guideline. It'll be a little different for everyone. 50% of your after tax income going to your needs. So that's going to be the essential items like your rent, your utilities, your groceries. 30% to discretionary items. So that's going to be your gym membership, traveling, dining out. And then 20% to savings goals. And that's going to be a mix of emergency savings, retirement savings, short, medium, and long term savings goals. But what I would tell listeners is if you can automate your savings, meaning take a portion of your paycheck, and this is why retirement accounts like 401ks are so powerful, And dollar cost average, which is just consistently invest the same amount over long periods of time, that's how you're going to get the best result. Because most wealth isn't generated as a windfall. It's generated as consistent fundamental action. So you're doing the same things over and over and over again for years and letting compound interest, which is not only the interest you earn on your principal, interest you earn on your interest, that's working for you. But a lot of us are so short-sighted. We want to go buy the latest crypto coin or buying the latest stock that doubles. And maybe we do, but for every one of those, there's an investment that goes to zero and it completely wipes out what we've done. So just as much as you want to focus on the upside, you have to focus on the downside. And then, the final tip I'd give to listeners is pay attention to the fees. A lot of mutual funds and investment advisors charge high fees, and the fees going to those companies are coming out of your pocket. And it doesn't mean their services aren't great, but nowadays there's so many cheaper options, whether it be index funds or other ways to invest. And that's just going to give you a higher net return so that you can build wealth faster.
Are you looking to become a diversified global citizen? If this is a lifestyle that you're seeking to create, we can help. Whether it be multiple residencies, citizenships, bank accounts, trusts, or company formations, we operate in 30 plus of the most tax-friendly jurisdictions around the globe to get you structured properly. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more and to get your global citizen journey underway today. So I'm curious your perspective on why investing in, like, let's say a solid stock, maybe like a blue chip stock or an index fund, how that compares to, I mean, we've had a lot of other guests on the show talking about various different options. So there's land, there's multifamily real estate, there's investments abroad. So how does that compare? I was going to add crypto, but maybe that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. So you bring up a very good point, which is diversification. Diversification means a lot of different things. It's not just diversification in stocks. It could be diversification in different asset classes. So, I encourage clients and listeners to diversify their portfolio among real estate, among stocks. But the first step is understanding your goals, understanding your time horizon, your risk tolerance, your return objectives. Because if you don't know that, it's impossible to build a portfolio that's going to work for you. Meaning, if you're 75 years old and retired and you've got all your assets in, small cap biotech stocks, and that's your life savings and you're living on that, that's probably not a good idea. And somebody younger can take more risk, and maybe having some exposure to crypto, if they're risk tolerant, could make sense. But it's really going to be unique to the individual. And so, I always tell people, seek out guidance. Part of having a healthy relationship with money is, being okay knowing what you don't know. Meaning you might not have all the answers. And if you don't, that's okay. Whether that's hiring an investment advisor or, working with a consultant that can help you out, a financial planner on a one-time basis. Those are all options to at least get you pointed in the right direction.
Totally. Okay, I wanna hear your thoughts about crypto. So I am very bullish on, I could dabble in, the AI coins and everything that is new really this year and last year. I just choose to go all in on Bitcoin. I'm extremely bullish on it. I know this year, maybe we're looking at the beginning of next year, things are gonna make moves. But I'm curious what your perspective of that looks like. And I mean, there's also great options, I guess, if you're more so on centralized exchanges where you can lend against your like what you have on that exchange. You can have loans. There's so many interesting options. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So I preface it with saying it's not investment advice because, obviously it's going to be specific to the individual. But I think with regards to crypto, it's an alternative asset class. So, much like, private equity or commodities, things of that sort, are alternative assets. It can make sense in, somebody's portfolio if they have the tolerance for that risk. I would say be careful in certain crypto. I would agree with you, Nicole, that Bitcoin is at least in my view, one of the more attractive cryptos because it is, truly decentralized. It has a structure where, some of the others, I feel like you don't really realize there's other people benefiting from this, right? There's there's hidden agendas, whereas Bitcoin truly, it's almost like a magical asset where nobody knows who really founded it, truly decentralized, limited supply, based on math, which I think is amazing because in our world, monetary policy, for lack of a better term, we keep printing money. And so this is a scarce asset. It's a deflationary asset in the sense that, there's only so much of it. And you're pinning it against an inflationary system where we're printing more and more money. And so it does put upward pressure on that. We just saw the halving in the past. That's been a big catalyst. And I think the bigger catalyst too is just institutional adoption. It's people accepting this as something here to stay. It's not you and I buying it. It's, huge companies, investment companies buying it, realizing this is a big deal. BlackRock, Fidelity, now you see all the ETF offerings. So I think that's validating that as an asset class. And I do agree with you that it's here to stay. And I think that it can make sense as part of a diversified portfolio.
Yeah, I totally agree. What we've seen just in the last year, I'm so bullish on Bitcoin for the most part. I saw somebody post recently. I'm
Yep.
trying to think, what was it? Um, Saving in Bitcoin, because there's so much money printing happening. If you're saving in fiat, then good luck. But if you're saving in Bitcoin, then really you're saving in an asset that is only going to continue to increase. And I'd never heard that specific perspective before. And I thought that was very interesting. Not that I'm like out
Yep.
spending my Bitcoin on anything for the most part, but I thought that was an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I think as long as you continue to see adoption rise, I mean, that's the big key, which it has. I mean, people are accepting it as something here to stay, not just in the US, all across the world. Because you got to remember, the US, we joke about money printing. It's worse in other countries. There's a lot of other countries where the monetary policy is much, much worse. So I think this gives people a lifeline. And I think, the other thing is it connects us as a world. Why is there barriers to trade, right? Why do we have so many currencies and there's so many barriers to trade and we live in a digital age. So, this asset I think is kind of the start to, unifying it and making it easier for somebody in Africa to sell me something here in the US and profit off that and not have the bank take a portion of that money.
Totally, yeah. A perfect example of that, I was trying to send money, I won't say the country, but it was to a sanctioned country, just for, like, a client, not a lot of money, like, almost nothing. And through any traditional financial system, it was blocked, account shut down almost, like, it was wild. Crypto, no problem, can send it to any address in the world, and I think for me, and of course, we
Yeah.
all know that crypto has this power, but especially something more decentralized, as you were mentioning, like Bitcoin, but, yeah, it was just such a good illustration for me of this is really the future of currency and power without having all these other hands and countries and financial institutions and AML and just so many other icky things involved.
I think it brings up an important concept too to point out, which is, and I think this goes beyond finance, being open to change. I think when you open your mind and you open yourself up to new possibilities and new things, that's how you continue to grow. So many of us close off. We're in our own paradigm. We're living in our own little world and we're used to the way we've done things for so long. But our lives change, the world changes. And I think if you can embrace that, that's how you're going to have a longer term success.
Totally, yeah, I love that perspective. Okay, so I'm curious now, let's talk about the entrepreneurial aspect of things. So building your business, what
Yeah.
has that looked like for you from day 1 until now?
Gosh, it's been a journey. I mean, I've been an employee my whole life. And I work with a coach and my coach had a great quote, Robert Brown, great coach. I'm shouting him out right now. And he told me, he said, Rob, he's like, when you're an entrepreneur, he's like, you have to understand something. Perfection equals poverty. You have to be able to get out there and fail, to try things, to just do things. And that's hard because when you're an employee, you're used to just doing everything right. That's how you keep your job. And so for me, this was all a learning experience, meaning, going through the legal aspects of setting up a business, all the website design, the language, all of that stuff. And even coaching was new for me, meaning, I'm an investment advisor. I feel like I have a lot of perspective around mindfulness and finance and all of that, but it's a new thing. So designing these programs and then also just the sales and marketing aspect of it. So, figuring out how to get clients and for me, it's a fairly new business, so I've been lucky to lean on the network that I have. And I would encourage anybody that's starting a new business to do the same. Use your connections. Use your past clients. Let them help you out. I've gotten so many referrals from past clients, and those have become clients. And then, they spread the word and then it gets out. And that's how you kind of build the snowball. And I think the other thing for me is realizing that coaching, the model of coaching is one to one, meaning there's only one Rob and I can only coach one person at a time. So it's not a very scalable model. But how can I take that over time and maybe transfer that to a one to many model where it does become scalable? And so there's thoughts in my mind preliminarily to do some more group coaching, maybe create a video series, or these, speaking engagements, seminars, things where I can get my thoughts and ideas out to more people, but it's one step at a time. Like we talked about, you climb Mount Everest one step at a time because otherwise it gets overwhelming. You go, gosh, I want to do this and that, and you don't do anything. So you focus on what's next and go from there.
Yeah, really interesting. I like that perspective that your coach had of I've never put it into that perspective of as an employee because I also was an employee. Um Not really in a position that I truly enjoyed, but, I think we've all been there. And it's so true, you're just so used to doing things very robotically, mechanically, so that you keep your job doing it by what somebody else wants it to look like, not how you think it should look like. And so I think, this is a whole nother topic, but critical thinking and
Yeah.
suppression and our education system. But yeah, that's a really interesting perspective of entrepreneurship. It opens up, and I would say I'm not a very creative person. I'm a very, like, type A person, but you have to get creative as an entrepreneur because otherwise, good
Mhm.
luck.
Yeah, you do. You have to think outside the box and you have to expand your perspective. That's the key. Thinking outside of how you thought before. Using help from others, like listening to others' ideas. I think having that, beginner's mindset is so important to being successful in business. Realizing you don't have all the answers, that, there's people that have done this before that do it better, that are going to give you criticism, and listen to that criticism. Don't take it personally. I work with a consultant, Andy Robbins, great guy. And, he always tells me what he thinks. And I appreciate that. And it's the raw truth. It's like, Rob, you did this well, Rob, we can improve here. But I want to hear that because when I hear that, then it drives me to want to improve that and actually make the changes.
I completely agree, and I think in the beginning, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same in the beginning of your entrepreneurial ventures, it can be really difficult to not take it personally and really just view it as constructive criticism. But now, if anybody who is at my level or higher in any one realm, let's say in marketing or in whatever it may be, and they're giving me any sort of feedback, if it's negative, it will be constructive criticism because I want to hear it. It's when somebody who doesn't really get it and doesn't understand and is, like, working for someone else, an employee mindset, that's when I'm just kind of like, "Okay, it's interesting to hear the outside perspective. Thank you. Take it with a grain of salt."
Yeah. Yeah, life is about accepting failure. Failure is part of the road to success. So nothing's given. You start a business doesn't mean it's going to succeed. You could do everything right and maybe the circumstances, the timing's wrong, there could be a lot of things. But that one moment doesn't define the rest of your life. That's the key. It's that mindset of getting up and continuing to pursue and continuing to, go after your passions, even through adversity. And that's the hardest thing because it's easy for us to want to, be all up when things are good. Can you find something in yourself when the moments are bad? And can you pick yourself off the ground and get back up? That's what defines, being authentic and really finding your true self.
Definitely. Okay, so I want to kind of open it up to you when working with clients in terms of financial planning, assets, acquiring different assets. Is there anything that you feel is important to bring to this conversation for any listeners who are really looking to potentially diversify their assets or start acquiring their first asset, acquiring new assets, anything in terms of the realm of finance?
Yeah. So I would start with spending, because what I do with my clients is, I don't work in an investment advisory capacity like I used to. So I'm not actually managing their money anymore. What I'm doing is educating them on the options that are available to them. Because the whole goal is to empower them around money and to help them realize all the options that are available to them. So I'd say, like we talked about earlier, spending plan is the first key. There's so many options nowadays. There's tons of budgeting apps, Simplify, which I use with clients, or Rocket Money, find the one that works for you, because that's going to be the baseline to understand what's happening every month. Because from there, you can start to redesign your spending plan, be more conscious of what you're spending. So you might find out, gosh, I didn't realize I was spending $1,000 a month on dining and drinks. I might be able to move that to $800. Maybe I spend $200 less. And so that's the first step to now creating a little more savings. And then from that, being consistent in terms of whether it's contributing to your retirement accounts or contributing to your taxable investment accounts. And then from there, I would say, you know, don't use an exotic investment strategy. Plain vanilla works the best over time. Everyone wants to recreate the wheel and do something fancy and pick the latest stock and this and that. And usually that doesn't work out well for most people. So, go to a big reputable provider, and, there's so many of them: Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab. you know, Work with them, ask them questions, interview them, tell them your story, let them help you out, and they'll be able to help you find options. Like we talked about, some index funds and things to get you started. And that's a great place to start. And once you start going there, you can expand your knowledge, do some reading, start to, get more interested in this stuff. And if you want to get more exotic and go into cryptos and all that, then do that. But the key is, go for the fundamentals first. Don't try to, sidestep the way things work and try to do something too fancy and get yourself in trouble, because that turns people off. Meaning, I think a lot of people get disconnected from investing because they have a bad experience. They lose all their money. They might make 100% in one stock and then lose it all in another, and they go, "Gosh, I don't want to do this. This investing stuff is too scary." So, again, play the long game. That's the advice I have. Think of the long term, especially if you're in stocks. Stocks are not an asset class that you want to invest in if you need the money next year. This is money you're going to spend on a new house or a new car, or, you have a trip planned. You shouldn't be gambling it in the stock market. But if it's money that you're saving for retirement or really long-term goals, then stocks can make real sense.
Definitely. And I will say, in you saying all of that, if you are American and you can take advantage of those financial tools, like one that I was looking at that looked so interesting with Copilot, but it's so difficult when you're living, I call it like a global citizen lifestyle, where I have banking in 10 different countries. And, some of these countries don't even have Apple Pay. So that just makes it another
Yeah,
level of difficulty. Great cards, great banks, just Apple Pay isn't available there. And so it
sure.
definitely complicates things. If you are still in, with what we do, we help clients to relocate abroad. But if you're still in your Western country, home country system, take advantage of it while you can, because it can get so much more complex when you're managing money across countries once you've left your home country.
Yeah. And I love your story, Nicole. Just being able to travel abroad, that's living authentically. It's figuring out the people, places, career, the things you want that are unique to you, and not letting the outside noise influence you so much. Because there's always somebody that's going to say, "Oh, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that." And a lot of times it's well-meaning, it's well-intentioned. It could be a family or a loved one. They think they know what's best for you, but only you know what you feel inside.
Oh, yes. I went through that journey. Thankfully, my family is very supportive, but, I mean, of course, anyone who's lived abroad long term, I'm sure, has been through that. So, yeah, very,
Oh yeah.
very well-known struggle, but I do feel like in time, it gets more accepted of, "Okay, this is just the lifestyle. It's not a 1 or 2-year thing." So, Robert, thank you for
Yep.
everything you've shared today. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I would encourage, listeners to go to my website, authenticwealth.com. And I'd also encourage them to sign up for my free monthly newsletter, which is called The Truly Wealthy Life. And that's going to give them not only financial tips, but tips on how to live a wealthier life. And then please follow me on social media at Authentic Wealth, and stay tuned for a lot of updates.
You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I'd appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials. And of course, be sure to tag us at Work, Wealth, and Travel. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining us on this global citizen journey, and we'll see you in the next episode.